Good evening and welcome to the Rural School Community Conversation with Maryland State Superintendent of Public Schools. I am Mike McGowan, Elementary Education Supervisor for Allegany County Public Schools, and I'll be your facilitator this evening. It's my pleasure to welcome Superintendent Mohammed Choudhury, State Board of Education members, and our community, conversation participants, and viewers on YouTube. As we know, Maryland is often called America in miniature. The state has beaches, mountains, cities, and farmland. Our residents are increasingly diverse and live in urban, suburban, and rural communities. As our state's population is concentrated in urban and suburban regions, rural communities are often underrepresented in statewide education conversations. Tonight, we'll be dedicating the entire conversation to hear from our rural school communities, students, families, educators, and school leaders from communities that are categorized as rural according to the National Center for Education Statistics are here to talk about their experiences and ideas for the future of education in Maryland. We want to understand best practices for education in these areas, so most of our participants tonight are connected to schools that received the highest ranking on the most recent Maryland School Report Card, scoring 5 stars. We will also hear from a school in Dorchester County, the only district in Maryland that receives funding from the U.S. Office of Elementary and Secondary Education, Rural and Low School Programs. But before we get started, I'd like to go over a few expectations and housekeeping items. We are live streaming this conversation on YouTube from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. If you're viewing on the live stream, you can use the chat to make comments throughout the evening. And as a reminder, this meeting will be live streamed and recorded, so your participation implies consent to be recorded. When you're not speaking, please stay muted and use this chat function if we're running short on time. And there are additional comments that you would like to make. Now we will hear from Superintendent Choudhury for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you to you guys. I really appreciate you guys spending the evening with me. I just got back from Kent County, so that officially means I have visited every shore district in my first year. So, and one of the things that I did there is I shadow students. So I have officially shadowed a student in every county, but I'll be back again. And one of the things I've also done Western Maryland and Southern Maryland, and it was important to me that I started out with the West, South, and the Shore before I came back to the core. I'm a city kid, so I know what's happening in the core, but I don't always know what's happening in rural Maryland. And I think it's important that I understand that deeply. So this roundtable is one of many conversations. I'm excited to hear that we added students as well. You guys are clearly doing amazing things, and it's important that we know here in the Maryland State Department of Education on all of the things that you are doing, but also your needs. You guys are the blueprint generation, and so as we look to implement the blueprint, we want to make sure that we get it right and not take things for granted that a city or urban school district may take for granted versus that is not necessarily true in like a rural community. And so I really appreciate you guys joining me tonight. We have our one of my board members, or one of my bosses, I often like to say, is board member Bianca Chang. She's there if you can wave. And so I really appreciate you joining us. We're in the middle of strategic planning, which basically means that the department is trying to figure out how it should organize itself to ensure the success of all of our schools. The last thing I'll say is speak your truth. So that I say this in every roundtable. And if you're wondering how you ended up here, I usually get like a crazy idea in my head is like, hey, let's do a rural school roundtable and find out where all amazing things are happening and figure it out and put them together and then get someone like Mike to co-host it with me. So here you are. All of you can attest that I don't know you and we didn't know each other before this, but we are going to get to know each other. And so I appreciate it. One of my mottos is expanding the tent. And so I really appreciate you guys joining us tonight. So with that, I will give it back to Mike, who will be facilitating today. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening remarks, Superintendent Choudhury. I'd also like to thank our state board member, Bianca Chang, for taking the time to join us today. And now we'd like to meet our participants. Please introduce yourself by stating your full name, your role as a student or family member, educator, school leader, and identify your school and your school system. So Carly, how about if we start with you?
Sure. My name is Dr. Carly McGowan. I am a fourth grade teacher at a school in Allegany County. That's it.
All righty, thank you, Carly. Kelly?
I'm Kelly Murdoch. I'm the building principal. Yeah, I am in Talbot County, and our school is pre-K to 5.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Madeline? Is Madeline with us now?
Yes, sorry. My name is Madeline Rhodes, and I am a senior in Harford County.
Thank you, Madeline. Okay, let's move to Judy then.
Hi, everyone. I'm Judy. I'm a graduating senior from St. Mary's County, and I also serve as the St. Mary's County Public Schools student member of the Board of Education.
Great, what an honor. Okay, thank you, Judy. Michael?
My name is Michael Olson, and I go to a school in Frederick County, and I am a sophomore.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, let's move to Paige.
Hi, my name is Paige Plater, and I'm a sophomore from Calvert County.
Okay, thank you, Paige. Okay, Daryl. There he is.
Good evening. My name is Daryl Prelo. I am the principal of Calvert High School in Calvert County, and I am also a parent of a student, a junior at Calvert High School.
Okay. Thank you, Daryl. Okay, Susie?
Hi, I am the principal at Vienna Elementary in Dorchester County, and I've been doing this for many years. I also have a 11th grader in a high school and a kindergartner and a soon-to-have pre-K grandchildren in the system.
All righty, thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, Caitlin?
Hi, I'm Caitlin Carroll, and I'm a teacher and the PBIS coach in Dorchester County, and I teach second grade.
All right, thank you, Katie. Heidi?
Hi, my name's Heidi Murphy. I am a mom of 3 boys. One is in high school, and my youngest is in 4th grade at Vienna Elementary.
Thank you, Heidi. Let's move on to Christine now.
Christine Corbeil, principal of a middle school, Clear Spring Middle School in Washington County, grades 6 through 8.
Thank you, Christine. And how about Carrie?
Good evening. I'm Carrie McCauley. I'm an 8th grade teacher in Washington County Public Schools and also the parent of 3 children at Washington County Public Schools.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Okay, thank you to all of you for introducing yourselves. As we transition into our questions, we are looking forward to a rich and a robust conversation with you about your experiences. We have a lot to discuss and a limited time for all of us to participate and to share. Each participant chose questions that are most important to them to discuss this evening. So we will be calling on you for those specific questions. If you have ideas that you want to add and you weren't called on, please use the raise hand button on the bottom of your screen. To our YouTube live viewers, please share your thoughts on the questions in the chat. All righty, let's begin with our first question. All of your schools are categorized as rural, and many received the highest ranking on the most recent Maryland School Report Card, earning 5 stars. What strategies are being implemented to make your school so successful? Let's start with Christine.
One of the benefits we have here is that a smaller community can definitely have people work together. It might be easier. They work here, they live here, they're willing to collaborate with others and learn more, the staff for sure, from other people. One of the things we do is we have a very strong curriculum base that provides for many options for different students. And I think also the promotion of literacy across schools, across grade levels and different courses has really promoted some of our successes. The PBIS initiatives assist us and helps us to encourage that high attendance rate, which is really critical for any student's success. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Carly?
Hi. So in Allegheny County, we really pride ourselves in the data-driven decisions, and we do a lot of really diving into data and looking at where the students' successes are and where there's some areas that we could do more to make them stronger. And we also have a lot of specialists that we utilize that go between schools. So when students are moving, those data decisions that we're making for them aren't just staying at one school. They're going with these students to other schools, so that when the teachers are developing lessons and looking at groups to accommodate needs, that data is there for them to make decisions for those students. So it's nice to have the flexibility of having the specialists that can travel in reading and math and share some information. We also, at my school, are a PBIS Gold School for the last several years, and we've also prided ourselves in having those positive relationships with parents and with students to get them kind of excited about coming to school. So that helps a lot with attendance.
All righty. Thank you, Carly. Okay, Kelly?
Hi. So like Carly said, we really focus on knowing our students, knowing their strengths, their areas of need. We also are very intentional with our data. We meet in PLCs because our building is so small. We don't have a lot of planning that correlates. So we have one class per grade, but we do carve out time for teachers and other staff members to sit down and really analyze our data. That way we can really focus in on our targeted interventions for students. And that collaboration is really instrumental in making sure that we're meeting our students' needs. The other piece is that we work really closely with our community members, and they have formed an organization where they provide after-school enrichment for some of our students. And with that, they also do some tutoring. So making sure that we're keeping that the lines of communication open with all of our community members.
Hey, Kelly, how do you make so your staff can get PLC time? You get substitutes? Or
Well, it's hard to get substitutes to come down, honestly, because of the drive.
Yeah.
But we basically utilize, we get creative with our staff meeting times and really intentional with what kinds of things we're focusing on. One of the benefits of having such a small staff is that we can come together like that and really use that time for data. Whereas with larger staffs, it might take a little bit more logistical time to organize groups and such. We just come to the media center, all sit down and break out the data. So.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Kelly. Susie? Okay, good.
I think we lost her.
Did we lose Susie?
For the time being, yep. If she comes back, we can.
All righty. Then Madeline, I see your name on this question also.
Yeah, so the school that I attend in Harford County, we have a strong focus on agriculture education. We have a specialized program called NRAS, which is Natural Resources and Agriculture Science. And this allows students to apply to a program from all around the county. And if they're accepted, they come to the school and get to work hands-on with animals, plants, or natural resources. We have a fully functioning barn on campus and a fully functioning greenhouse, as well as ponds and streams. So what this does is it definitely allows students to work hands-on with what their passion is. And this inspires more attendance, inspires higher test scores, because not only are we learning the basic classes to graduate, such as math, science, history, it takes a focus on what we actually enjoy, making school a much more enjoyable place. I know personally the agriculture classes that I take are the highlight of my day. And I know the students feel the same way. We also have basic agriculture classes where you don't have to be in this program to take them. Whether it's natural resources classes, animal science, or plant science, anybody that attends our school has the ability to take these fun but educational classes.
All righty, thank you, Madeline. And I don't see any more comments in the box. So let's move on to question number 2 then.
I think we have a couple of hands up. Folks might really want to answer that question, and I think we could take it given the time we have right now.
I'm sorry, I don't see any hands showing up on my screen.
We'll take Judy and then Daryl. How's that? I think
right.
I see your mini hands, your emoji hands up. So yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Choudhury. So in St. Mary's County, I think the beauty of our system is that there's not much red tape in our decision making at the board level. So since there's only 3 high schools in the county, I feel that the experience of high schoolers in our county is very equitable in terms of infrastructure. So if we're making a decision towards one high school, all the high schools are experiencing that decision as well. So for example, this past year, we implemented like NFL level, grade level turf fields at our high schools for all the high schools. And since we implemented them at the same time for each school, this was a very equitable situation since we weren't putting each school on a wait list, and each every student, every sports team had the same opportunity to use these new equipment. And on that same note, we have around like 16 elementary schools, and those schools, the infrastructure in those buildings are all very comparable to each other. And if systems such as HVAC or windows or actual like building infrastructure is aging or needs to be replaced, they're on a wait list that sets the schools up to be comparable with each other. So schools from like the northern end, the southern end, the middle region, like they all have comparable facilities, and students are experiencing the same level of education. So there's not a distinct level of like inequality within our school system, and students do have that the care and the education like equally across the schools, and we don't bus students unless you're like in a program where you need to be bused to a different school that you're not districted in, but students are going to schools that they live near, and all these school systems are very comparable with one another, and they're receiving the same education.
Got it. Thank you. Daryl, you had your hand up on this question.
Yes, thank you. I think one of the important things, our county is big on equity. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Calvert High School is allowing student voice. So we incorporate and allow student voice because our relationship that we have with our students and the things that we do in our building it is upon us that we make sure we're listening to what our students are saying. Inclusion is huge as well. And so one of the things that we've been doing for the past couple of years is called proportional scheduling. And so what we're doing is we're looking at every student. So when we look at every student with proportional scheduling, we look at whether different needs that students may have. A student may have, ADHD, or they have an IEP, or whatever various disabilities that students may have. We make sure we spread those students out in our courses so that students are not all in one course or one class. And so by doing so, our teachers are able to plan and meet the needs of all of our students. So that is something that we've been doing. We've been doing pretty well. The other high schools have joined on with us to see what we're doing in regard to looking at the needs of our students, their IEPs, needs assessments, things of that nature. And we proportionally spread them out throughout our schools so that all students are able to get that one-on-one support within the classrooms.
Got it. Proportional scheduling. I'm still tripping out that your son goes to your high school, or is it son? Goes to your high school? Yeah, I want to go to the principal's office, who's my dad too. Like that seems like a very weird phenomenon. Looks like we got Susie back, Mike, and let's see if she can. Hailstorm had knocked out a power out. I'm glad you're back and you're safe. And so if you can answer this question, Mike, you want to give the question again so she can.
I sure will. And thank you for noticing those hands. I totally missed them.
I got you. I'm your Robin, your Batman.
Right. Okay, Susie, our first question was, all of your schools are categorized as rural, and many received the highest ranking on the most recent Maryland School Report Card, earning 5 stars. What strategies are being implemented to make your school so successful?
One of the things that makes it so valuable at our building is because we are so small. One of the other participants said that our teachers know their students. We post data and we don't have to have names because we're small enough, and we meet every single Thursday and other days voluntarily. And we know the kids by name, and we know who is exceeding the goals. We know who is finally moved up to be on grade level. We know who is falling back. We know which ones in red are the ones that just moved to us that we're trying to figure out how to catch up. We're looking at the ones that we've tagged from years past that are really struggling because of COVID. But every one of the kids, they might be a number on the data board, but we know them, we talk about them, and we go, is this working? Is it not? Is it a behavior? Is it a teacher behavior? Is it a home? Is it attendance? Is it not following up? We talk about them all the time. So knowing the beauty of being small is that we know our kids. The second part is I'm not new to the building. And when you're not new and you have invested yourself and your teachers have invested in the children, they know them as well. We know because we're small, sometimes it backfires, but because you've been with the same children and you know their history from pre-K to K, for instance, our 5th graders, I've been with them ever since they've been in school. So my ability to talk to their families and support the family businesses, to reach out, to see them in the Walmart because I know that's where they shop. I see them with the families that need us to help provide uniforms. We went to that because of other kids making fun of the clothes kids were wearing. All of those individual needs, everything comes together so that we know the kids. And that's the piece that makes being a small school so magical, on top of being stressful because we sometimes do not have the resources that we hear about other people having. So we make do with whatever we've got. And right now what we've got is people committed to our babies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Susie, if I could just have you clarify something there. You said you've been with the students clear up through the 5th grade. What exactly does that mean?
That means I started with them when they entered 5th grade, pre-K, and I've been there at 7 years now. So I have been with these same students as they've progressed through the grades. So I've known them since they first entered the building. Not that we haven't had transfers come in, but once they come in, some of the kids I've had since they were 4 years old. And the families just know us because we've been there through thick and thin since they came at 4. And now they're 10 and 11 years old, getting ready to go to middle school.
All righty, thank you. Okay, I don't see any other hands, so let's move on to question number 2 then. Describe your access to the internet and transportation in your school community. How does this impact student learning and outcomes? What improvements would you like to see? Okay, Kelly, would you mind starting?
Sure, I don't mind at all. So, post-COVID, one of the few things, in my opinion, that came out of COVID for the better was we had a lot of community relationships built where they helped provide, hotspots and those kinds of things for our students, like locations where people could go to access. And then our county provided individual hotspots for families who couldn't get access. I feel like because we are a one-to-one county, we have really worked hard to make sure that we're providing access. So I feel like we're in a pretty good place with that. As we noted before, smaller counties have fewer resources, and our county, we use the same buses as other schools. So because we are so far out, they do their route, they drop off another school that's an earlier starting school, and then they come and do our school. We make do and it's fine, but it's always nice to have additional access to resources and funding.
All righty, thank you. Hey, Judy, I see you're on this question.
My county is also a one-to-one school, and during the pandemic, we also gave hotspots to families who needed that access. But this is purely my opinion. I personally hate that my county only has one internet provider, and it is a very bad provider. It's very spotty. It's not reliable. You might know it as Atlantic Broadband, now BreezeLine. It's not great. A lot of community members always complain that we don't have access to Verizon Fios or other companies like that. We only have one company, and it's not great. And I know it makes for a difficult situation when you're at school and, things aren't loading as quickly as you want it to, or the bandwidth at your house is very, very little, and you want to do assignments, or you're just trying to, live in the modern age and, and access the internet, but it's just not working out. So if I could, I would definitely bring more internet providers to my county. But on the note of bus transportation, I think that in this past year, my county has been very lucky to not have bus driver shortages, there are shortages, but we haven't personally felt the shortage because all of our bus routes are still running as normal, and we haven't had, sports cancellations because we don't have bus drivers. We haven't had event cancellations because of lack of bus drivers, or, students haven't been late to school because there are no bus drivers running routes. We've had the luxury of being able to run our days as smoothly as possible. So I definitely very appreciative to that note, but I know a lot of other counties have been experiencing those troubles. So.
Okay. Thank you, Judy. Okay, Christine.
Yes, we offered the hotspots as well, but being out here in rural Washington County, it is, challenging for some families certainly to have that access to strong devices that work. We are one-to-one, but when they take it home, there definitely could be issues. I think we're dealing with some of the transportation concerns that other folks have, maybe not as much as other counties, but we're always encouraging to see how we can promote those jobs of people. Are they willing to help us by driving a bus? And we see the promotion everywhere. So we're hoping that's definitely going to improve for sure. So we can make sure everything's accountable. Our students are, available to get where they need to. And, also through the summer, transportation in the summer, we're working hard on that to make sure they can come to our summer programs.
Christine, do you have to make any decisions as a school leader on how to assign assignments that are taken home as a result of the Wi-Fi inconsistency of Wi-Fi connections? Do you guys are thoughtful in how you make assignments and make sure things are not, when you're home, you don't have to necessarily work through the internet, or is that something not a concern for you?
The bonus of being smaller, like Susie had said, is that the families well. They'll reach out to you, let them know the concerns. They'll reach out. My internet is not working well. Discounted internet is available. And we've also promoted, the hotspots for extreme cases, going back to that. So we definitely have families that'll reach out to us to let them know their needs, because the students do seem to want to do it on their Chromebooks.
Got it.
We certainly have a backup option if that was the case, but usually we hear from the families for that.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Michael, how about you on this one?
Okay. So regards with internet, really in Frederick County, it's touch and go some days. We'll have our good days, we'll have our bad days where the internet will be out in the morning usually, or right as the day is ending. And we just make by with that, do the best we can. With transportation, I want to say is a real bigger issue in the county currently. So Frederick, we're pretty evenly divided. Half of our high schools are urban areas more, with Frederick City, Urbana, Linganore, Newmarket area. And then you have half of the high schools who are in rural county or rural areas like Middletown and, other schools around there. And so what I see in our schools is a really big opportunity gap almost. Like there's programs offered at high schools in Frederick City that aren't offered in my school, which is a rural school. One example of that is the Academy for Fine Arts, which is a art program that operates out of a city of Frederick High School. And the way that we get our students involved in that program is by busing them back and forth in the morning to go to this. And that takes a huge chunk of like time that could be used for them to get another learning block in when they're just sitting on a bus and sitting on their phones doing whatever, when we could have that time to be more productive things. Another program, Career and Tech Center, that's in Frederick City, so we have to drive people there. And some of these schools in the inner part of the county and urban part of the county, they have these short bus routes, but then it's often that these rural parts are left out. So really, one improvement I would like to see from that is how can we get more of these programs to our rural schools? Because I mean, we are lucky at our rural school to have programs like FFA and just involvement in the agriculture aspect, but not everyone wants to be interested in agriculture. You have people who want to go into more city-like business jobs, which it can be harder to get from a rural school.
All righty, thank you, Michael. Okay, Paige, would you like to answer this one?
Yes. So earlier in the school year, we did have a bus strike in our county, and there were a lot of issues with that. There were crowded buses. People were having like 40 to an hour long bus rides for like routes that usually take like 15 minutes. But I'm happy to say, like talking to students, everyone said that all of those issues were resolved when the county resolved the bus strike issue. So transportation hasn't been a problem really lately. We have a Here Comes the Bus system. So that's something students can use to see where their buses are. So it's really great if you're like running late in the morning and you need to know like how much time you have left. In terms of internet connection, I know I go to the northernmost school in the county and I haven't had any issues. Like I can count on my hand the number of times we've had internet issues and they're resolved by like the middle of the day. I was surprised to hear from students like closer to the lower or southern end of the county who have like constant internet issues. They're always having to like stop their lessons and maybe print out stuff that they would have done online. So that's definitely a problem in the southern end of the county rather than the northern end. And then also we're one-to-one as well. And it's definitely more of a problem now after the pandemic, because before the pandemic, we didn't really have a lot of online assignments. Most things were on paper, but now we're like very dependent on using our laptops. So when there are internet issues, like the kids in the southern end of the county are being impacted.
Okay, thank you, Paige. Madeline, would you join us for this question?
Yes. So definitely in my school, I know internet was a giant issue when the pandemic hit. Even when we were back in school doing virtual learning on the computer, like we would have to lose internet at school, like for the entire day. And I know that was a really big problem, especially during COVID times where teachers would be back in school, we'd be at home and meetings would just drop. And it was extremely difficult. With coming back to school, it's been a lot better. I know that our school really worked hard to try to get a better internet connection. And that was very much seen. I know that personally in the area that I live in, within going to my school, I have like the best internet and my internet's still not fantastic, but my school itself is between a cornfield and a cow field. So when it comes to internet, we're kind of lacking. And when it comes to the bus systems, it's also been struggling this year. I believe in years past as well, due to the agriculture program we have buses that come from like 40 minutes away across the county, depending. So with the bus driver shortage, it's been even harder this year because their children or like kids who sit on a bus for about an hour every morning coming to school because they're in this magnet program. They're still in the county, but in a farther part away, they have to be picked up and taken back to school. And I know that's extremely difficult. You know, we have to wake up early enough for high school on a good day, where with these bus shortages and being picked up earlier and earlier, or kids getting stuck at school for like an hour or so after school has ended because a bus driver didn't show up or a bus route was, something happened, where I know that's been a big struggle that has slowly been being resolved as more bus drivers are being hired and the shortage is kind of starting to decline. But I think somebody else had said that those bus driver hiring signs are all over the place. Like everywhere you look, we need more people, and it's definitely been adding to the problem I think that we already had before with having a large magnet program and long bus routes anyway, and then you add a bus driver shortage on top of it, and it just creates more of a problem to an already pretty severe problem.
All right. Thank you, Maddie. Emily, we're glad you could join us, and we'd like to get your thoughts on this question. So let me repeat it so you're sure you understand what we're asking on this one. Describe your access to the internet and transportation in your school community. How does this impact student learning and outcomes? What improvements would you like to see?
Hello, I'm Emily. I'm from Carroll County. I am a junior, and a lot of my concerns mirror a lot of the other students that I'm hearing discuss what their issues that they're experiencing are within their schools. So first, as for internet, our schools definitely do come across issues with inconsistencies between the schools, but also within the schools. Certain rooms have larger issues depending on the location, whether it's in the east, west, north, south wings of the schools. You see a large variance in that sense. So some teachers have learned to adapt to less internet. It also takes up a long period of time and often requires computer resets. We are also one-to-one. So a lot of students I've talked to have experienced you have to reset your computer in order to connect to the internet. So it's a minor inconvenience, but I've never noticed we had any severe issues with our internet in that sense. But also with asynchronous learning, or whether it was hybrid in the last year, a lot of students face different discrepancies in how they were able to attend class. I know I was definitely a student. I'm in the southern part of the county, so definitely in a more rural area. And I noticed issues that I would get kicked out of classes while other students were able to stay in class. And it just, loses your track of focus sometimes. Sometimes you'd be out for 10 minutes. And I would know I was not the only student who experienced that. So just trying to close that learning gap has definitely been something we're still working on. Additionally, as for the bus route, we are also in a bus driver shortage, so we're currently working on that. We do have an issue with transportation up to our Career and Technology Center. Our Career and Technology Center is in Westminster, so it's about 20 minutes away from our most distant schools. However, we have to allot about 40 minutes for transportation purposes. So what my school gets at the Career and Technology Center for our second mod at 9:15, while other schools don't get there until about 9:35. So we have to just sit and wait. So we often work on emails or other activities, but it's not the same as being able to start class all much sooner. Another issue with busing is also redistricting. That busing is one of the major components we have to consider when redistricting, because if there's any slight change in the bus routes, that will change the start time for our schools, which obviously we can't deficit some students over other students and schools on their learning time. So those are the major issues. But again, internet is minor inconveniences, no large significant issues, and transportation we've definitely adapted to.
Can you tell Emily's involved with student government? And just the way she's just always versed on policy issues. Were you on my first roundtable when I first did it?
With the student members of the board? Yes, I was.
Yes, that's what I remember. Sometimes I forget that they're students.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up on this question. Are there any educators or school leaders that would like to share something additional to what we've heard? Okay, not seeing anyone jump in. Oh, okay, Katie?
Katie, yep.
Hi, I'm Katie Holbrook. I missed the intro, but that's okay. I'm a 4th and 5th grade teacher at Vienna Elementary School. I just wanted to kind of tag in actually a lot to what Paige was sharing when she said that there's a discrepancy in different ends of the county and their availability for connectivity. As an educator, I will tell you, as the most incredibly difficult season of teaching in 14 years throughout COVID. Probably one of the hardest pieces is the amount of transitioning that we've had to do from the beginning of this school year into where we are right now, and through the phases that we go through in COVID. And in the very beginning of the year, we were very technology dependent because we never knew where students were going to be. And so creating those lessons is very labor intensive. And so providing lessons that are accessible at home while then also having students in front of you. And so it becomes this difficult balance of, you know, I have them right here in front of me. I want to do these hands-on activities. I want to do these great things. And so much of that needs to be on the technology piece, and then planning things for students that can't be there, that are quarantined for extended periods of time. So that became difficult. But then the other piece to that is the connectivity. So you would plan this amazing lesson and you're so excited to deliver it. And then the internet goes down, and not just for a moment, for hours, and then not just for a day. Be incredibly, oh, there goes my internet right now. Be incredibly flexible in what that looks like and how you're planning. And so that became one of the most difficult pieces of that this school year, in planning those lessons for children, making sure that everyone has access to the material and being able to plan those quality and effective lessons for everyone. So thankfully, I think we can say we're getting more close to normal than we have before. But that was very, very challenging.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Anyone else want to add anything? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so let's go ahead and move to question number 3. Recruiting and retaining high quality teachers is often more challenging in rural schools. How are you recruiting and retaining high quality and diverse teachers and leaders? What's working well? And what are your innovative ideas for how we can improve? Okay, Katie, I'm going to come back to you right away.
Right away, I get to say things. Okay. Well, I don't have something prepared for this, but I would love to share some thoughts for recruiting. Tragically, recruiting at our local schools that we often see, our teacher colleges, aren't producing as many teachers as we have seen in the past. And it's like I said, tragic. And so one of the bigger things that we're having to do is to travel far and wide to try to find those quality educators, those people that are passionate. I will say that the homegrown programs are the most beautiful, because when you can tap into people that are born and raised in an area, it is their community, it is their people, it is their families, then I find that they are far more vested than when you do go far and wide, although it is necessary. So one of the things that I would highly suggest for counties is to implement, I mean, I know through the Career and Technology Center, we have the TAM programs, the Teacher Academy of Maryland, which is a beautiful program where we can utilize, just the students that are right in our backyards that are passionate about education, that are passionate about their community, and that really want to come back and make a difference in their community. And the beauty of that is, when you're pulling from far and wide, you don't often have that vested piece that keeps them here. You may keep them for a small period of time, but then it's really difficult to maintain that when their family's so far away, or it's just not their home. And so those homegrown programs become incredibly valuable. Another piece of that, one of the greatest challenges we have in recruiting on the rural parts of Maryland is that our budgets are much lower. It is very, very, very difficult to get our county council members to vote above maintenance of effort, mostly because our tax base is so small, because our people are so spread out. We're not as dense in population and don't have quite as large a tax base. And so that's one of the most difficult parts of what we're looking at when recruiting staff, is that we just don't have the competitive salaries that many of the larger counties have with those numbers. And so we're doing everything that we can. We're trying to think creatively, looking at bonuses. I know that the Maryland Leads grant that just came out from MSDE, there's a lot of creative solutions and problem solving in that. And so we look forward to that. I do also know that anything giving back to staff by way of mental health resources, whether it be days that instead of we're going to, pound you with professional development to build you and make you better, while those are always great, sometimes we just need some time to sit and some time to breathe and some time to have the opportunity to just pour into who we are as educators, because so much of who we are is pouring into everyone else. And so that recharging piece is really, really important. So any way that counties can offer that, whether it's half days, whether it's, thank you so much, let's add an extra day to your break, whether it's, just self-care and all of those pieces, those all become very critical in retaining teachers.
You can tell Superintendent Bromwell he will find out this week on the status of their Maryland Leads grant. So
I appreciate that.
I know he didn't tell you to say anything about it today. You just said it. All right.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, let's move. Caitlin, could you address that question, please?
Yes, let's hope I don't embarrass myself after these wonderful students and Katie have spoken. But I will start off with some things that I guess Dorchester, I don't know much about other counties, as some people might know since I'm just a teacher. But I know in Dorchester, some things that kind of might pique interest to come to our rural county is we have really good healthcare coverage from percentage of the county wise and the percentage we put in. So that's kind of like a good thing. So I don't know what other counties do in terms of that, but that could be something that could pique interest of hiring staff in terms of healthcare. We also have really good funding for our furthering education. So when I got my master's, a majority of my tuition was covered per course that I took. So that was very, very helpful in furthering my education in those senses. And I can continue to take courses even though I've reached my master's and still have that financial help. So that's a very big bonus in Dorchester. And retention bonuses is something that receiving, you can correct me, Katie, this year for staying on as staff through a certain time. Those are pretty lovely. But I guess in terms of things I would, that might help, I might not know, as Katie said, mental health days. Yes, we only work 180 some days, but I always think of it as I'm taking the entire year's worth of a job and squeezing it into 180 days. So it's it can be taxing, and having that appreciation, as Katie said, here's a day, or here's an appreciation from the big bosses in the county. Those types of things are really can go a long way. And I also was thinking of there is a lot of difficulties before the pandemic, but the pandemic has brought on a lot of other challenges in the classroom. And for maybe counties or Dorchester, whatever, can provide strong support system for staff, not just on certain days, but throughout the school year, and really show that staff, they have the staff's understanding and they're listening. That might be a positive thing, especially for new recruits, if they come in knowing what supports they might have from the get-go in challenging times, that people that might not be in education know that it is challenging. So to know right from the start, we have these supports, these are the people that we have to support you. Because when I was hired years ago, it wasn't like it was today, but it was, if I was being hired today, I think of it as like, I would want to know what kind of supports I would have before accepting a job to make sure that I am accepting a job in a place that I know will support me and has all the ducks in a row kind of on how they might support someone who's brand new in a challenging time of education. So thank you.
Okay.
All amazing policy, deep decision. The only thing I didn't like you said is, I'm just the teacher. You are not just the teacher. You are a teacher. You are conducting brain surgery every day to shape the future of our country. So
I'm trying to break that habit.
well, don't say it like that. The state superintendent is telling you you're not just a teacher. You are an educator. So please.
All right. Thank you, Katie. Okay, Susie, would you like to share your thoughts on this one?
I think teachers coming in now need to be coming in with a bag of tricks that's a tad bit different from what colleges have been teaching them. I believe, having been a reading teacher my entire career and learning about the teaching of reading, I believe colleges are preparing teachers or not preparing teachers. Actually, they need to be teaching. They need to know the science of reading before they step out of a college teaching program. They need to know best practices, if they're elementary, in best practices of mathematics instruction before they ever step out of the college. And those two pieces, I go over it and over, especially being so near to Salisbury University, and we have interns who are coming in and they are just in awe of the knowledge that our teachers have about what you have to know to be able to teach young children how to read. And I keep thinking about how to keep them and retain them, is that they need to have more knowledge about what it is they're getting ready to do before they ever step into the building. And I know that's not our issue, that we can't control the universities, but I truly, if I could just get in there and say, if you want successful teachers, they need to have this background before they ever have to deal with management and the traumatic experiences of the young people. You can't do the emotional piece if you don't have the background for the cognitive pieces and the academic pieces that are coming. My second thing is about how to recruit and retain, is to have them understand that the arts save children. Academics might save a few, but when you want to connect to children, they have to have more connections to their real world and where they are, rather than just the academic piece that you're expecting them to be performing on. You have to meet the whole child. And I don't think they are taught in college that they get the emotional piece and there's some psychology in there, but there's so much that goes into making a connection with a child so that you can teach them. So I feel like the retention of teachers is because they're just not prepared for what it is they have to do every single day to make children able and want to learn. A long way around the how to retain them, but the high quality comes from the program that they're getting as undergrads.
Amen. Well, know that teaching reading rooted in the science that has been true for decades, frankly, we've known is a number one priority for me. It is in our Maryland Leads grant. I saw that your district has committed to, making sure they're doing that. You may not be able to shape higher ed, but I can. So we renew them and we look to make sure that their curriculum is aligned. And I'm just saying that is You're absolutely right. It is not a mystery on how to teach reading. And so I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, and I also love that you said art save children's lives. And so that's a very important component as well in how we make sure students get a really holistic education that is not just math and science, strong math and science, but also rooted with other experiences from social studies to the arts and everything else. So thank you, Susie. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Susie. And let's move to Christine.
For teacher retention, here we have, some strong foundations of teachers that have been committed for a long time, which is amazing. We don't have too many teachers that are going to other schools. I think bringing in this small community, we know these younger people who maybe have the strength to become a great teacher, or that could be their passion. I think helping to promote that when they're younger and when they go to high school, whether they're going to go to the technical school, to go to the education program. We have one at the high school. So I think helping to understand the students and who else could also be a great instructor in our area or in our county would help, as we know the students pretty well and learn their strengths. And if this is their passion, we want to make sure that we help promote that for sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Judy, I noticed your hand was up for a minute. Did you change something now?
No, I must have been raising it by accident, but I do have something to say now that you mention it. I think in culmination, my county practices many of the things that you guys are saying. So we also have a Teaching Academy of Maryland at our Career and Technology Center, which Dr. Kerwin visited, I believe, last fall, and he was very impressed by our facilities and the programs we had there. We have things such as like aviation, dentistry, teaching academy, welding, CAD, engineering, all sorts of those things. But the thing is, I feel like our teaching academy is very robust, and our students often go to the Maryland state conferences to talk about the program and their experiences. But there's definitely is a lack of interest in teaching. So I chair the Superintendent's Student Leadership Advisory Council, and that's about like 30 kids from all secondary schools within our system. And every time we have a meeting, or we have like a summit, a conference, yada yada, our superintendent is always very disappointed, jokingly disappointed, that none of us are interested in teaching. So I think homegrown, like growing your teachers, is a very important aspect. And I know a lot of we have the St. Mary's College of Maryland in our county, and that is a public honors college, and a lot of students who are like doing their master's in teaching or becoming going to school for teaching, they come out of that college and work within our school system. And St. Mary's County also offers scholarships to seniors who plan on majoring in education, becoming teachers, to come back and teach within our county. So we'll give you like a $2,000 scholarship, but you have to teach within our county for 2 years, something like that.
I think I see Michael and Maddie. So if you guys, Maddie, you want to go, and then Michael, and then we can go to the next question.
Sure, I see we're running a little low on time, so I do not want to take up too much, since I'm not a teacher or anything like that. But I know that in my school personally, a big thing that I headed up this year through my school's FFA, the Community Service Committee, is we did teacher gifts every single month. And at the beginning of the year, I sat down, I looked at a list of all teachers, custodians, paraeducators, anybody that made an impact in our school. And month by month, we broke down which teachers got gifts. And they were usually something small, seasonal based, but just like the thank you that I got from doing this. I know teachers loved it, and how sad it is that so many of you teachers get taken for granted. I know personally, my teachers have impacted my life that I'm about to graduate, and like the thought of not having them next year, like, makes me want to cry. Where just the small giving back to teachers and just realizing that you are so appreciated. I think this should be more of a countywide thing instead of a a school-based community thing. Most of this money came out of my pocket that I did, and I sometimes got reimbursed later through the FFA, but I went out with my committee and did this because they were all exactly like me and wanted to give back to these teachers that give us so much. Where if that more came from a county level, where it was the county saying, hey, we care about you, here's some money for different events to let the students plan things out, where I feel like it would just encourage more people to be teachers, realizing that you are so appreciated. And there's just such this either lack of respect or lack of communication and disrespect that just comes between teachers and students that it's definitely not okay. And I think that, you know, small things like these can help teachers, you know, want to keep teaching or want people to start teaching because they realize how much they impact their students' lives.
Thank you, Maddie. Michael?
Yeah, I'm a student too. I'll try and keep this brief. Currently, I don't know in Frederick of what we're doing to recruit and retain teachers. I know we're working with Hood College to get more local teachers. I have a lot of teachers that graduated from my high school. But through some conversations I've had with teachers is that they have felt unprepared on the stance of dealing with mental health crises in schools with students. And I think, you know, through the pandemic, we've had a lot of teachers retire because it has become so much of not only do I have to teach teach children now, I have to make sure their mental health is healthy. They're making by because, you know, sometimes we can lack on other resources for mental health. So I think through these discussions with these teachers, just hearing how unprepared they feel, I wish I could help them in some way to give them those resources. And it'd be great to see that from a county level, you know, being respectful of teachers' times, of course, and just providing those opportunities to be prepared for crises and other issues that can arise today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right, we have 2 questions left, and we want to make sure that we're able to address both of them sufficiently. So let's see if we can try to hold our answers maybe in the 3-minute range, and then we'll move on to the next person. So let's look at question number 4. Poverty affects all communities, but can create unique issues in rural areas. What is working well in your local school communities for students who are economically disadvantaged? What needs to be improved, and how would you improve it? And Caitlin, we'll start with you on this one.
Okay, I'll keep this brief. So in our county, we do have a lot of outside community help when it comes to providing food for students when they are not at school. We also have different professionals that come into the building from outside areas, whether they're therapists or dental flu shots, those types of things coming to the school. One thing that I struggle with is I was not in a economically disadvantaged family growing up. So it's hard for me. Yes, I can say that's so horrible. Like, you know, that's like have those feelings, but it's hard for me to appropriately approach different traumas from these, because I can't say that I have had experience with that to appropriately to go about those issues with students. So one thing is being able to help the students as the teacher, while the community coming together to help these students when they're not at school, or helping them by bringing services into the building. As the teacher, it would be nice to be able to help these students, because with these disadvantages can come traumas from either like homelessness or parents working and not actually not being able to be around because they're trying to financially support the family, those types of situations. I can't say that I have a complete understanding of what that feels like. as a child. So I would like to see more of how we can help as teachers, even though we're not technically as professionals like therapy and stuff like that to help them, but to be able to understand and then to be able to see how to help them through different traumas, and maybe those traumas bring on different behaviors. And so we can figure out how to understand it better. I hope that makes sense. But I just feel like I don't understand it as fully as somebody who's experienced it. So I would like to just see more help on how to approach those scenarios, whether it's a professional coming in with teachers to show them how to approach those situations that they might not know how to approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Okay, Daryl, would you jump in on this one, please?
Well, I think it's important you start by seeing them, letting them know that they're there, that they're a part of your family, they're a part of your community. So we go out and we do home visits. We embrace them, we love them. It's all about relationships and creating that culture. So you have to have culture responsive. Our school has to be culture responsive and acknowledge and accept and embrace all students. And so when all students embrace each other, then if we want to call our impoverished students, they don't really see that because they see themselves as a part of the community. And so we do all sorts of things. Again, it's all about this including, embracing, loving, and letting them know that you care about them. And it's all about opportunity. So you don't treat a student that you believe is impoverished or is struggling any different from another student. It's all about equity, right? We provide them what they need to get them what they need so that they know that you care, and you provide them what they need to be successful like any other student in that building. You don't treat them differently. You don't, you just want them to understand that you see them. I mean, me being a Black male coming from poverty, I understand that teachers, when they see you, they embrace you, they love you, and they say you can be whatever you want to be. And when you acknowledge that and students see that and you're genuine, you're authentic, they perform for you. Students will perform for you within that you believe in them. And when you believe in them, they will do whatever they can, and they will set their limits as high as you allow them to set those limits.
Thank you, Daryl. That's okay. Carly?
Hi. So one thing that Allegany County did, this was several years before COVID, and actually it's actually had 2 cycles since I've been working in the school system, is our whole county did Ruby Payne training, where we covered the framework for poverty and really looked at how can we take that framework and implement it within the culture of the building that we have. Like I had said before, we're really big into data, and I'm a big numbers person, so that's like my favorite thing, is really diving into the data. And we were looking at where are our students that fall into this category, where are they performing, and we noticed that we had a big discrepancy with students that came from a background that's not as equal as others. And particularly boys were scoring significantly lower in reading. So we were bringing in, my school was located right next to a significant university for our little county. So we were bringing in the football team. We brought the basketball team in, and every Friday they would come in, different teams or other professional men, doctors, people they would see in the community, to read to the kids, just reading a book. So that the boys knew, you know what, reading's cool. This football player that tackled somebody on Friday is reading me a book today, and it's cool to read. So that we saw, a big difference with that. And my school specifically did a lot of gender training, right before COVID. So we haven't been able to reap as many benefits from that, but I'm sure that's going to be on the list of things to cover again. Another thing for my school that makes it a little bit unique for me is we were a Title I school since I started teaching. And with the last 2 years, we're no longer a Title I school. And we are really seeing the disadvantages of that because we had the extra staff. And now we have interventions and we have programs that we can't offer because we don't have the people. And it is hard. It's making it very challenging to reach those needs when you know that at one point we had an extra 3 sets of hands that could pull to help those kids. But I do like, what Daryl said about, meeting the kids where they are and being in a small rural area. We can go to the kids' soccer games. It matters when I go to a student's black belt karate test. They care, and the family seeing that we care makes our job more than just teachers and educators. That it makes them feel like we're part of a family, and I think that's a nice culture that we can promote in rural areas that maybe some of the bigger places it may be hard to do, because if you don't go to everybody's soccer game or dance recital, you're in trouble. So being able to hit as many as you can is nice.
Thank you, Carly. Okay, Kelly, how about jumping in on this one with us?
Sure. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Daryl and Carly both said. I think, we have to start, and what we do is we start with a culture of caring, and we have to build trust with all of our students and with all of our families. Because I think if people don't trust, if they don't feel seen, if they don't feel like you're going to advocate for them, they're not going to be willing to put themselves out there. How many of us would want to do that? But one of the things that Talbot County's done and our schools continue to do is to provide care packs for students, which are sent home on Fridays to provide food for families who are in need due to food insecurity over the weekend. The other piece is that we're fortunate to have social workers in our schools. And my social worker and my school counselor are essential to my building. They do a lot more than what a traditional job responsibilities are. And our social worker in particular really works with our families to provide resources to kind of educate them on what's out there. They are kind of like a liaison, they network, and they also meet with students. And they provide professional development for our teachers and staff for like youth mental health trainings, those kinds of things, so that we are more prepared to deal with some of the issues and the traumas that students are facing every day. Additionally, we do partner with mental health providers, and they do come into the schools and provide mental health for some of our students, for families that choose to do that. And the other piece is that not just students who are maybe economically disadvantaged, but all of our students who are really finding that after COVID, they're struggling to interact with each other. They're struggling to problem solve. They're struggling to, what do you do when you disagree? So we're really having to spend a lot of time doing, reteaching how to interact, reteaching those strategies of what do you do if you're not getting along. So we use conscious discipline in our building and in our county, as well as PBIS. And as far as solutions go, I think just for us, it would just be additional resources and additional people to continue to provide, because there's never enough social workers or school counselors. There's never enough mental health providers. There's always many more names on the wait list than there are slots available. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Okay, I don't see any hands, so moving on to our $1 million question. We ask that you please be brief because we want to hear from everyone on this one. So Paige, how about starting us off with this one? It's, if you had $1 million to invest in your local school community, how would you spend the money?
Okay, so I was really passionate about this question because the first thing, of course, I thought was mental health. There are so many areas that we can improve in. For instance, like right now, when I think of counselor, I think of someone who's doing my schedule and helping me out with my schedule. So I'm like, who would I go to if I'm struggling? And we have even less psychologists who are more trained in that area at our school than we do counselors. So if our counselors are already overwhelmed, what are our psychologists doing to like connect with students? So I think I would like implement some programs that would help students in the long term with mental health. These are problems that aren't going to be solved with one conversation with your counselor. So if we had like a program that worked with like I guess things outside of school, clinics, offices for therapy and stuff that connected students with the people that they need to talk to, I think that would be really beneficial because it's kind of a separate issue and you can't handle everything at school. So it's important that we're talking to people who are professionally trained and can help students like work through all their issues.
Thank you, Paige. Okay, Carly, do you want to answer this one now?
Sure. I think our idea of extra staffing for mental health and for counselors is a great idea. As a fourth grade teacher, I can tell you we don't have a limit on class sizes, similar to the younger grades. So we're sitting at 26, 27, 28, even as many as I've had 31 kids before. And when they're having these issues, it's really hard to be that person when you have 30 others looking at you. So any way we could help with that, that would be a great asset to everybody.
Okay, thank you, Carly. Maddie?
If I would love to implement more of therapy animals in school systems, or I know, like I said, I have a barn at my school, and we have kids come down to the barn, and it's like the best therapy is petting the horses, seeing the cows, like being outside, being hands-on with nature. And in a rural community, we can actually have that, where a lot of schools, they don't utilize their outdoor areas, their courtyards. And I think sometimes being outside is the best therapy, or having a therapy dog in the school with the psychologist, so a child can go talk to this person without it being as intimidating, because there's a cute dog there that you can pet if you talk about your feelings and you talk about why you're upset. And I just think advocating for mental health with resources within the community already can just be such an eye-opening piece for students of all ages, from kindergarten to seniors in high school.
All righty, thank you, Maddie. Kelly?
I think, in Talbot County, we too are really focused on equity and educating families and community members and students and staff. I think being able to have that extra money to figure out a way in order to have community members embrace the work would be one of the ways I would utilize that money.
All righty, thank you. Carrie, what are your thoughts?
Honestly, for me, I have a very unique opportunity. I teach in the school that I attended as a student. My children have gone to this school as well. I have a son that's graduating this year from the school that I was an alumni at. And I live in the community, so I'm fully invested in everything. And something that I've noticed, and something that I would appreciate, would to somehow figure out a way to broaden the connection between the community and the schools. We're lucky enough to have a campus-based situation where elementary, middle, and high school are all very close to one another. And I think sometimes there are community members that are interested in being involved, but there's really not an opportunity for them. So if there would be a way to somehow have a liaison or someone who would serve as a representative, as both community member and with the school system, at least generalized with our population, that would be extremely helpful. It, always looking for more people to get involved. And I think we're fortunate enough in the kind of community that we live in that there are people that are willing to, they just don't really know what their place is. So a connection with communication would be a great place to start. I'd appreciate that for my own children, who I've taught 2 of the 3 so far. But that's where I stand for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Caitlin, how would you spend $1 million?
Definitely all of these ideas I would spend the $1 million on. These sound fantastic. It's actually a very hard question for me because there's a lot of things I would spend $1 million on, but $1 million can only go so far. If I could multiply it, I would, and give everybody $1 million. But definitely mental health, as I've stated, having that support and having that understanding. So Paige, that was a great idea. Loving the therapy animals, that's fabulous. That's a great idea. But I guess, as people have said, people, spending the money to have more people and more hands and more people coming together to make things possible for our students.
All right. Thank you, Caitlin.
Let's go.
Daryl, how would you spend your $1 million?
Can we go to Heidi right quick? Because they're in the same school. You have the teacher, and I want to ask the parent how they would spend the $1 million. So you know how your teacher's going to spend it. How are you going to spend it before we go to the next? Because we haven't heard from Heidi all roundtable long. And so I want to make sure we get to her.
So I'm just a parent, not just a parent,
Just a
teacher, just a parent. But I feel like I'm on the outside looking in. So I don't know everything that goes on. So I don't really know how, but of course, as a parent, I want my child to have the best education that they can have. So I would like you're saying, for interventions or enrichments, I want people there to help those children or our children. And with the tutoring and even I have 3 kids, so they're all different. And one very likes to read, and then I have another one that doesn't like to do that. So to have incorporations of hands-on activities, like Katie was saying, I know it's hard, but to have the money to be able to facilitate that, have the people, the extra hands to help do that as well. But I also, after listening to everybody, I would give the money to teachers. I'm gonna say, you do what you want to do with it, because you know what they need.
Got it. Thank you, Heidi.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Daryl, now we're back to you.
All right, so it's all about the people in the community. So we're going to use this $1 million to establish a community school. And so what we do with our community school is we have professionals in the community that want to provide services back to the school. So we would create a community school where in the evening we provide services, whether it be medical, mental, whatever it may be, to support our families throughout our community. And to support those families who don't have transportation, we would use some of that money to purchase about maybe 4 passenger vans that we would then go out and transport our families and students back to our school, whether it be for whatever services they would need, for academic, mental, physical, emotional, whatever service they would need. We would incorporate using the data that we've collected on our students throughout the school days to support them after hours. And we would hope that Superintendent Choudhury would earmark that $1 million, that we continuously get that $1 million each year.
All righty. Thank you. Okay, Emily, how about your thoughts on this?
$1 million, it seems like a lot, but with education, it dissipates very quickly. I agree with Paige. Mental health is very big for our students, and I understand that there's a big lack of that in our communities. A lot of our community programs, they have specific purposes for how they support mental health, but I know a lot of students have trouble seeking outside mental health because of certain stigmas. So I'd like to more cooperate those outside programs with in-school therapists, but I'd also like to support students below poverty levels by making sure they have opportunities for professional development, whether that's resume building, professional attire, which we all know is extremely expensive, because there's no reason a student who is impoverished should not have the equal opportunity for a job as another student. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're getting real close on time, so let's see if we can keep this moving. Michael, how about you?
So I'm going to agree with everyone for mental health. But the main thing I would like to see is school infrastructure and building infrastructure in general. A lot of schools in my counties are way past the point where they're due for a total renovation or a total demolish, rebuild the school. So our county has really fell behind on updating our schools. And once you fall behind, it's really hard to get caught up. Like, for example, the elementary school on our campus, it was built, I don't know when, but when openness and open layout was all a theme.
Yep.
And so there's no walls, and that doesn't work. So it needs to be totally redone. It needs new HVAC systems. It needs new piping, new plumbing. It needs a lot. So I would really, $1 million, it can't really take us that far with improving our school buildings. But I think it is a really important step that we do have to make forward. If you're not comfortable where you're learning, if you're hot in one room and you're freezing in another, you can't learn. You're just distracted, and it can be really hard to get in the zone to focus.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Susie, what are your thoughts?
I was hoping you'd call on me.
I did, dear.
Okay, real quick. Multi-generational families. I believe we need, with my $1 million, I would bring in the grandparents that are raising our kids. I would have them work on sewing and cooking, making bread, looking at the engine of the car, checking tires, the family things that bring generations together. It's missing. We have so many kids that have grown up on free lunch and going to the quick shop to get a bag of Cheetos or a soda. I want the kids to know how to sew something, put on a button, those things that build relationships with families, as well as those of us who are involved in their educational world in the academic ways. That's my 2 cents worth, and I would love to have that $1 million. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Susie. Judy, how about you?
So when you work on the Board of Education, you quickly realize how fast money can go, and how little $1 million can truly be. But the first item on my bucket list would be scaled pay raises for staff members, such as teachers, people personnel, psychologists, social workers, everyone who is hands-on within the building. I think my priority would be to increase their wages, just because I know currently with the high turnover rate in education, it's due to burnout, and it's due to how little reward you can get out of it from other than, the connections and the emotional relationships you gain. It really is very taxing to be in the educational field right now. And I feel like all staff members deserve more than they're receiving, but you guys are all very appreciated still.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Katie?
Come on, Katie.
Oh, I was just loving her comments. It was wonderful. I've just been taking notes viciously over here. I don't know that I have any more creative solutions. I think the creative solutions that have been offered are phenomenal. Connecting our families with each other, connecting our community to our schools, paying our staff more. These are all the pieces that pour into an education system. We had so many grant opportunities throughout the COVID season for technology, internet resources, one-to-one devices for our kids. What I can say, and one of my most favorite comments, I think Daryl said it, was the earmarking piece for sustainability for this funding. And I think that becomes the most critical piece, because when you have schools, and it may have been, I apologize, I don't remember who said it, but going from having the abundance of resources to bring your students where they need to be, and then celebrating that, and then so many of those supports go away. It really almost cripples you as an educator to have something and then to take it away. And so the sustainability, I think, factor is one of the key pieces in meeting those things. But I love the ideas. I think you guys have some phenomenal ideas. It's well done.
Okay, thank you, Katie. And Christine, we'll wrap this question up with you, please.
Yeah, there are some amazing ideas, and I do have to go back to social work and counseling services, and as well as the tutoring services, whether that's in the day or in the evenings. Having an itinerant social worker, it'd be nice if there was one assigned to each school instead of, one or two feeders for sure to help students, because the conversations for what their needs are not 5-minute conversations. They need time with these professionals. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Christine. And as we've wrapped up our time together today, I'd like to thank all the participants and those viewing on YouTube Live for joining us and sharing your thoughts tonight. The State Board of Education and MSDE want to keep this conversation going and ask every Marylander to complete the strategic planning survey to shape the future of education in the state of Maryland. You will find this with the website of marylandpublicschools.org/survey. It'll also be placed in the chat box for you. Please fill this out and share it with your committees. Again, thank you for joining us tonight, and we look forward to working collaboratively with you, our communities, to ensure every Maryland student has the opportunities needed to realize their full potential. And Superintendent Choudhury, would you please give us some closing remarks?
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Lots of great ideas, lots of things that have implications for policy. I always look for details, and there's a lot that the state board and myself can do in addition to both set policy, but I can also push on the assembly in Annapolis to think differently around things. And, we are in Blueprint. Blueprint is looking to invest billions of dollars over the next 10 years, right? I always think about, well, how many schools do we have? Whenever I go to a school at the elementary school, they say, who are you and what do you do? And I say, my job is to make sure that every school can be the best it can be. And we have 1,400 schools and 900,000 students. So if we gave each $1 million, well, you do the math there. Blueprint's looking to invest billions of dollars and sustainability over time. So, it's not that it's $1 million will solve anything, but I always ask this question because I want to see where people would put their million, right? For me, I'm thinking in terms of, okay, what should we be investing our dollars in and making sure that it lands there? And so I really appreciate everything you guys shared. I love that it spanned from everything from taking care of our teachers, making sure we have a well-paid profession, to the mental health needs of our staff and students, to the nerdy science of reading things that I love. So it ranged from all of that. And then the multi-generational approach. I often talk about the 2-generation approach. I appreciate Susie taking it another step further. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Please fill out our survey or tell people to fill it out. I would like more representation at the world level. And then if you have ideas for roundtables and other conversations we can, please reach out, and we will definitely continue to engage. So thank you so much, Michael. And with that, we can wrap up.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent Choudhury. And thank you to our board member, Bianca Chang, for taking your time to join us and participate. A special thank you to our community conversation participants and to all those on YouTube watching us live. Thank you again, everybody, and stay safe.